Welcome to today's Tough Talk Real Estate Podcast. Today's guest, Markeith Spears, played middle linebacker and served as a team captain at a little-known football school called LSU. He successfully transitioned into real estate and currently manages an office that's boasted over 300 agents. Few people can use their successes and failures from sports more to help coach agents to their success. If you want to learn some tough lessons today, put on your chin strap and get ready to tackle today's Tough Talk.
I must have done something good to deserve you. I'm not superstitious, it's just a suspicion, but I feel it in my bones. I feel it.
Welcome to the Tough Talk Real Estate Podcast. I'm Tim Soyka. Today we've got a very special guest. Markeith Spears played at a little football school called LSU with Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion Ryan Clark, three-time Super Bowl champion Kevin Falk, two-time Super Bowl champion, and one of my favorites, TV personality Booger McFarland, greatest nickname ever.
Roommate.
Yeah, he was your roommate.
He was my roommate, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
He's a successful realtor in his own right and now manages an office that's boasted over 300 agents. We're going to discuss how some of the toughest lessons he took from sports can also apply in real estate in his transition, and what you can learn from your time alone, whether it's sports, studying the Bible, or whatever, that you can bring to the real estate world to help make you successful. So welcome today's guest, Markeith Spears. Markeith, we're happy you're here.
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate this opportunity to come and talk about something that's very passionate to me, and that's being able to share my experiences. I think, growing up and where I came from, and you've heard the stories before, is that when I look to where I'm at, is to be able to tell the stories is a great thing.
So you were a kid in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Probably always wanted to play at LSU, I'd be my guess. If you grew up in Louisiana, that's where you want to play.
Yeah, it's they're pretty crazy in Louisiana, so if you become decent at a sport, they usually don't let you get out of the state.
Right.
But to be honest with you, I was the first person in my family to go to LSU. Everyone else went to, Southern University. My older brother went to Tulane University. So I was the first one that really started the trend for my family going to LSU. So
you weren't the first person in your family to graduate college. So you had some good examples. In my family, I was the first person to graduate college. I remember that was, you felt such pressure, but you had some great role models.
Yeah.
But were you the first one to go on a full scholarship though?
Well, no, he's my cousin, but he's like my brother. We grew up together. I always call him my older brother. He was my role model, Tim. He was the guy that I wanted to be like. I mean, he was All-American in high school. He played multiple sports. He played basketball, football, he ran track. He did all those things. And so growing up, we were 4 years apart, 5 years apart. And so he was my role model. I followed him everywhere.
What a blessing. Yeah, and look at what you've been for the people behind you too.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you were the first person in your family to actually go to LSU.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So what is a podcast-safe LSU sports story you can tell us?
So
that's fun.
The best thing about my most memorable moment at LSU is that I remember going through the recruiting process, and of course to go to SEC school, you're usually, you got to be pretty good to get there. You got to be pretty good. And
he's underselling it.
Well, but then that means that they already got people that are already good there. Right. So I remember when I was getting recruited by LSU, I almost didn't go there because they had an All-American linebacker. They had 2 All-SEC linebackers. Then they had another guy that made second team All-SEC. So my whole mindset was like, man, I'm going to go to this school, and I'm probably not going to play for 2 years most. I'm probably going to redshirt, practice, and then maybe play a little bit my redshirt freshman year, and then hopefully start my sophomore year. Then I get there, and then things just change. I get there, and some guys get hurt, and then I beat out some guys in camp, and so now I'm going into the second team on the depth chart my freshman year.
Second team at LSU.
Yeah,
freshman year.
Here I am, and I come from a small 1A school with, I had 44 people on my entire teams, and now I'm like, man, I'm this freaking one injury away from being a starting linebacker for LSU, and so that was my biggest moment, is that it made me believe that I can do anything.
So did you see the field at all your freshman year?
Yeah, I ended up starting my third game of the season.
As a true freshman?
Yeah. Wow. I started the third game of the season, and we played against Kentucky, and I think I had 10 or 12 tackles in that game, nice. And so but that was my biggest moment, but it was also one of my trying moments because I had always been a guy that I graduated number 5 or 6 in my class, 3.6, 3.7 GPA. And, the whole time you hear everybody saying, oh, man, how long you going to stay in school? You're going to stay there for 2 years and you're going to go pro. You hear that all the time. I mean, because you number one linebacker in the state and everyone, that's what they associate with you. So what happened was I get to LSU and my academics go out the window, of course, and my first semester, I think I made a 2.3 GPA, And so, and my parents were, I got blessed enough where, even though I wasn't raised by my mom or my dad, my grandparents.
You said she was tough, your grandmother.
Yeah, she was tough. It was it was a good tough. It wasn't like she never spanked me type tough, but it was tough.
High expectations.
Yeah, high expectations. And I never wanted to disappoint her. That's why I never wanted to ever go to jail or do anything because I never wanted to see disappointment on her face. So I always, she taught me everything. So, coming from that, I mean, it made me realize that, that I can do whatever I want, and coming from South Louisiana, there are a lot of limitations, but I always taught that your limitation is limited to your thinking. If you can think it, you can do it.
So how did you play all 4 years at LSU?
Yeah.
Did you graduate in 4 years or?
So I graduated in 4.5 years. It took me an extra semester to go back and
still playing full-time sports. That's incredible.
Yeah, and then I graduated and I had a degree in Bachelor of Science in Construction Management, and then I had a minor degree in technical sales. So
what was your first job out of college?
So my very first job after I didn't make it to the NFL, which is different within itself because for the first time in my life, and at that time in 22 years or 23 years,
football was all you knew.
Football was done. It was over. And it's like, man, what am I going to do? I mean, and you prepare for it, but you don't prepare for it. It's like, I still remember vividly, we played against Arkansas in 1998, the last game of the year, and it's like, man, it's over. It's like, what and of course the Booger McFarlands and the Kevin Fox and all those guys that went to the NFL, they were still going on and having their NFL careers. But the hardest thing was was like, what am I going to do? I was prepared for it because I still graduated with a decent GPA, and I got a job with Lion Energy coming right out of college
nice.
In Houston. And so my first job was I was a power consultant for Lion Energy, which at the time I was working with developers, going around the city and designing the power grids and the neighborhoods and stuff like that. So and then I did that for 6 years, and then I left there and went to Perry Homes as a builder. Because I wanted to.
So you were building homes with Perry?
Yeah, I was a project manager for Perry for 5 years.
Who was did you work with like Sean Jarosa or Ryan or?
So when I was there, they had a division president, Gary Laridan.
He was fantastic.
Yeah, Gary was amazing. And so I was out in Sienna Plantation, one of the biggest neighborhoods out there. We built a lot of houses there. And then I went over to Perry started their own little community, Creekmont, where it's all Perry Homes. Built a bunch out there, and then they did something that they hardly ever do. They let me work in the neighborhood I live in. I live in Pearland and Shadow Creek Ranch, so I spent the last 3 years working in my neighborhood, driving literally 1.2 miles from my house.
Oh, that's nice.
And
so you have the superpower a lot of agents didn't have. You know how to build a house.
Yeah.
Which is a superpower in itself. One thing I say a lot in real estate is make sure you embrace your superpower.
Yeah.
For instance, mine's sales. It always has been. I embrace sales. But if you have that kind of technical skill, inspections become a lot easier for you. Right?
Yeah.
So it's fantastic. So what made you decide to leave? A lot of us fall into real estate. I actually left Nestle and chose to come into real estate.
Yeah.
Gave up the salary in the company car.
Yeah.
I did it on purpose. But it still was scary. So what made you decide to leave that salary and make the transition to real estate? Because you were a very successful real estate agent before you were managing offices.
Yeah. I was, back in 2011, I was at work, and I realized it's like, man, I think I was 33, 34 at the time, and I was looking around and I noticed, I'm like, man, a lot of these guys, they don't work past, parent homes don't keep them around past 40 years old or 42 years old. And so I'm like, man, and then I was working a lot of hours. I was always there, and it's like, if I'm going to work this hard for something, I might as well work for myself, Now at the time, I didn't know I was going to get in real estate. I quit my job cold turkey. I mean, I remember going home and telling my wife.
Great company too. Perry's a great company, and you just quit.
I left. I was probably making six figures as a project manager, and I walked away from it, and it was the hardest thing, Tim. I mean, it was tough walking away from that salary, and then I loved to do what I was doing at the time, but I needed to find who I was going to be, and so.
And it's funny you kind of do that. I was 36 or 37.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to know if I can do it myself. So you kind of had that same thing.
Yeah. And I didn't know I was going to get into real estate. I tried maybe to become a general contractor, maybe I'm going to build my own homes, and which I ended up doing that later on. But so I was just driving one day after about being off for like 2 weeks and not knowing. I said, you know what? I'm going to go to real estate school, because no one knows real estate. I have been working with developers designing this stuff all over the city of Houston for years.
Trained by one of the best companies out there.
Exactly. And so it's like, I knew where all the neighborhoods were before they come to fruition, because these things are planned years and years in advance. They don't just pop up and start, cutting roads and all that stuff. So, and then I went and learned how to build houses. So I'm like, there's not a real estate agent out there that's going to know more about the real estate and the housing and all that stuff than me. So I went and got my license. It took me about a month. I went to Champion School of Real Estate, got my license. Got out. I started school in March, and then I finished, and I started late March, and I finished. I got my license like June.
Champion School of Real Estate is fantastic.
Fantastic school. Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm going there Saturday to recruit, bringing lunch there for one of the classes. But and so
what did your first year or two look like in real estate then?
So my first. And I got a story, man. It's my first 6 months. It was rough because I got in and I got my license June, and then I sold my first house like the second week I got my license. Because I had a friend of mine that played ball with me in college. She was like, "Hey man, I need to buy a house," and we went out and found my house, wrote a contract, did all this. I mean, I wrote my first contract in training.
And you're like, "This is easy."
That's what I thought. I'm like, "Oh man, I'm gonna kill it in this game," and didn't sell another house for about 6 months, but I did like 4 or 5 leases. And I remember looking at at the time, the broker I was with, they were taking 50-50 commissions. It wasn't where we're at now. Where you get 100% or, at the end of the year, I looked at what I made from real estate, and it said, I still remember the number. It said $5,965.
Oh, that's a tough first year.
Yeah, it was, it was tough. And so, and man, I thought about quitting, Tim. I thought about like, hey man, I'm gonna go get a job because this is not working.
It's scary, yeah.
But even though I was thinking about quitting, I never quit doing the activity. I still did open houses every single weekend. I did property desk. I did, taking phone calls, and then I started using my social media, and that what really blew me up was my social media.
So you invested in yourself. You continue.
Yeah.
So people don't know, by the way, there's still a ton of business at open houses if you know the script. We could teach a whole class on open house scripts.
Yeah.
But a lot of business there. But tell us how social media, the next thing is secrets of success.
Yeah.
So tell us how social media really kind of launched you.
So for me, at the time, this is 2011, transitioning to 2012. We wasn't in the crazy market until late 2012. You remember, maybe in it kind of 2013 it started.
Yeah, 2013, the market here in Houston went crazy.
Yeah, so and Facebook was a new thing. It was, I think it just came out in like 2009 maybe. So my philosophy was, I'm going to friend everybody that either lived in Louisiana, moved to Houston, that went to LSU, and so what I realized that Houston is the biggest alumni group for former LSU students and alumni. So I just started, friending everybody, at the time, and I did something different, Tim. I didn't go and say, hey, who wants to buy a house with me? I just went and act like I was working. I knew all of the builders because I had just worked with them.
Right.
So I knew all the salespeople. I knew every neighborhood. So I would just go to these neighborhoods, and these builders will let you come in. And I mean, now it's very elaborate. They people do content and all stuff. But even back then, they would let you, showcase their houses because they want to sell them too.
Right.
And I would go to these houses, Tim, and I would, take photos, and I would say, hey, this is the vitals of this house. This house is 3,200 square
and
feet.
treat it like you're listing.
And like it's in my listing, yeah. Right. And I would post it, and then people would, now mind you, Houston real estate was always very, very cheaper than anywhere else in the country. So you can get a 3,000 square foot house back then for $240,000.
Right.
I mean, so there a lot of people that was moving from Louisiana, from all these other places, like, man, you can get 4,000 square feet for $300,000. Like, yeah,
Well, I like that you went back to your LSU brethren. So your time playing sports really did help you. They knew who you were.
Yeah.
You were going out and reaching out to people who knew where you were.
Yeah.
How much business would you say you created from that LSU Facebook group?
Man, Tim, put it this way: in 2013, I think I closed 38 transactions,
Which is a lot.
by myself in 2013. Now, the volume is not like it is today. I think I only did like maybe 7.5, 8 million in volume off those 38 transactions. But
that was a lot of business back then.
Yeah, back then it's crazy. But I would probably say 35-40% of the business came from direct from LSU, either directly from it or from people referring me to different people. And the thing about social media, Timmy, this, it takes a lot of time, But what I did was every morning I would get up. And Facebook make it easy for you. They would tell you who had a birthday, who had a life change, So every morning I would spend my first 30, 45 minutes of the day just wishing people, I didn't even know them, but wishing them happy birthday and then putting it on that timeline. Because then it's not just enough doing that, but then when they respond to you, and a lot of these people were excited because they're like, man, this LSU guy that played for LSU told me happy birthday,
Well, and you went on Facebook. So one thing I want to stress, you went on Facebook with a purpose.
Yes.
You did not go on Facebook to spend 7 hours there.
No.
Which that's not the recipe for success.
Yes,
but
yes.
if you get on Facebook and treat it like it's a business,
yes,
you can build a lot of business from Facebook,
Yes,
from
yes.
Twitter, from all of these.
all those things.
However, remember, treat your time there like you are there to gain business. But gaining business doesn't mean asking for business.
Yes.
It can just mean happy birthday.
It's happy birthday. And the thing that really, and I tell people, it come at a cost. It come at a price. You will never hear me use profanity on social media. You will never hear me talk about anything too controversial.
I never talk politics on Facebook.
I never talk politics.
You know who buys houses? Republicans. You
Yes.
know who else does? Democrats.
And then the independents and all in between.
Right.
So
I am apolitical.
yes, I don't talk about that
Professionally.
stuff. I don't talk about anything that's going to offend people. I know during the whole George Floyd stuff, the thing, and all that was bad. But I got a brother who's a police officer, and so it's like, man, I'm never going to go on there and talk about, good, bad, or indifferent.
I'm not going to comment on anything political for any reason, anytime, ever.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to say that's a nice looking kitten. Your grandbaby looks pretty.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'm there for.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And I don't even disagree with people on that. I mean, if I see something that I don't like, I just keep it to myself. I don't go, oh man, you crazy for not doing that. I just keep it to myself. So now I become known as a person that he's always energetic. He's always positive.
Always positive.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
Well, and that's how I think you became a team leader. So I want to get back to kind of the theme of today is transitioning your sports success into real estate success. So sports, there's a saying I use a lot, and I use it in the lobby. The most important thing sports teaches you isn't how to win. The most important thing sports teaches you is how to lose.
Yes.
And how to lose with grace and class.
Yes.
And how the next day the sun still rises, things still go on. I tell people all the time, I can tell when someone didn't play sports because if I get into a business disagreement with them. So when I was at Nestle, I had a lady I had a disagreement with.
Yeah.
And it was a meeting. I basically went against everybody in the meeting. I had the opposite side of everybody.
Yeah.
And afterwards, a couple guys who play sports came up to me and said, hey, let's go get a beer. And we were just throwing flames at each other in the meeting.
Yeah.
2 years later, the person who didn't play sports is trying to get me fired
Yeah. Yeah.
for disagreeing with her 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
again, playing sports matters. It teaches you how to lose. It teaches you how to have disagreements. And
It does, Tim. You know, and you've been to some of my team meetings, and and they probably get tired of me saying it, but I always refer to my sports background with everything that I do today is because of what I learned through sports.
Right.
You know, what I learned through coaches. I mean, I've been blessed him to have coaches that
coaches are business mentors. You don't know it at the time.
Yeah.
My best ones were so tough on me.
Yeah, man, I got a chance to play, and one of the guys just passed away about 2 years ago. A guy named Grover Perkins, tough, chew tobacco, man. Every time you see him, he had a big plug of tobacco in his mouth. But he taught me how to first of all, to be tough and to be a leader. I remember one time, we were all coming in late into PE, and 6 or 7 people before me were late. He didn't say a word to them, but I come in late and he blows up and he's like, what are you doing? Where you been?
Because he saw more in you. He didn't tell you that.
He didn't tell you. Right. And so, and then I, when he was yelling at me and I yelled back and said, well, Coach, why didn't you say nothing to those guys he's like, because they're not the leader. You are the leader, and if I let you get away with it, they're watching you. They're going to watch everything you do. So if you show up on time, it's going to make them. So I learned that even though you might not expect it, people have eyes on you. There are some of us in life, Tim, that are born to be leaders, like yourself. You're born to be a leader. You're born to be different, and it's not because you boast and you brag. It's not because you want the attention. It's because you're able to take the pressure. You're able to, because, one of the things that I tell my son is like, if you're going to beg to be on the field or beg to be there, you better be able to handle the wins and the losses and the indifference.
So so I think and I'm very honest with you, I was a below average high school athlete. No, I was.
Silsby.
And I could Silsby I couldn't even make the starting team at Silsby probably, but I had to go work and I didn't get to play sports my whole career. But sports isn't just about high school and college sports. Although don't get me wrong, if you have the opportunity to play them, for God's sake, do, right? But I've run 3 marathons.
Which is amazing.
And after my first marathon, you're a different person after you finish a marathon than before. Like someone would say to me, like, can you do that? Of course I can do it.
Yeah.
I ran a marathon, right? So sports changes you in good ways and it teaches you lessons. There's one, can I share a story with you real quick?
Yeah.
So my daughter played on, an elite basketball team.
Yeah.
And a lot of the parents, and when you're on one of those teams, you don't just get to play. You only play if you're performing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much you're paying the coach. The team we were on, if you weren't playing, it's because you weren't bringing something to the. You weren't learning. You weren't bringing something valuable to the team. And a lot of the parents got together whose daughters weren't playing, and they said, "Hey, we're going to go talk to the coach. You're going to go talk to the coach with us." And my daughter came to me and she goes, "Dad, are you going to go talk to the coach for me?" And I said, "No, I'm not going to go talk to the coach for you.
Yeah.
That's not the lesson you to learn here." I said, "What you're going to do is you're going to go talk to the coach and say, I'm not helping the team, coach.
Yeah.
Do you need me to wash the jerseys? Do you need me to clean up the floors? You just tell me what I need to do to help this team, whatever it is, and I will do it." And he said to her, "You are the best point guard I have, but your defense sucks.
Yeah.
I can't let you on the court because your defense is terrible."
Right.
And that afternoon, my daughter came home and we hit the driveway.
Yeah.
She was doing the bricks, right? You know the brick. You've done the brick.
Yeah, you got to.
You can move a lot faster when you're not carrying bricks after you've been carrying bricks.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, she was a starter.
Yeah.
And all those parents who went and asked for more time for their kid didn't get it.
Yeah.
You have to bring something to the team, and that's what sports taught me that through her. Like I can't go.
No.
She had to learn that lesson, right?
And it will only be a good lesson if she learns it through that way. I tell my son, because they don't believe they I showed them somebody sent me a YouTube video of one of my high school games and it was one of the games where I had like 14 tackles and but I told my son, I said, you got to realize if you would have saw me play football the very first time I went out there, you would have been like, there's no way in heck this kid is going to end up being a decent athlete, because I wasn't good. Now, mind you, I'm watching I wanted to be like my oldest brother, and he was 5 times the athlete that I was. He was a better athlete, but I was a better football player. I was a better, he made it to the NFL because he ran faster and but I was a better linebacker. I was the toughest, Ray Lewis type linebacker. But it didn't start off. I didn't have success right away. I had to, my first year, I didn't get on the field. It's like, man, I struggled. And I remember my mom coming to a game because she didn't get a chance to come to very many games. My mom, was very poor. We didn't have a whole lot. She walked to a game. I mean, literally, she walked maybe 6 or 7 miles to get to the game. And I remember seeing her in the stands, and I never got in. But she said, that's okay, But from that point on, I said, you know what? I'm going to work my rear end off, and I'm never going to.
That changed your life.
It changed my whole life, man. It changed my whole life. So that's next season, I went from not playing to playing 7th grade, and then even as an 8th grader in high school, I started on the varsity team as an 8th grader. And so because I learned that I wanted to be different, and I'm a very visual person, so I started studying like people who are good. I would look at the newspaper. Now they don't have a newspaper anymore. They don't want to look. They look online, and I would see like all of the linebackers that's in this area. And like, what are they doing? Okay, yeah, this guy has 17 tackles. Oh, this guy had 14 tackles. This guy. So my goal was, okay, well, first I want to have a game where I have 5 tackles. Okay, now I get to 5. I want to have a game where I get 10 tackles.
Just keep improving.
I just kept improving. And then I said, I want to start averaging 10 tackles a game, and then now I'm averaging 10. Now I want to get a game where I have 15, well, now I can average 13, Then I set this crazy goal. I said, look, I want to have a game where I have 20 tackles in a game. Because I saw one guy I was competing with in my neighborhood. He had 18 tackles in the game. I said, I want to beat that record, And so I remember we were playing against Episcopal, in Baton Rouge, and I had 24 tackles in the game.
Wow.
And I remember the statistician came up to me after the game. She said, did you realize you had 24 tackles? And then my coach, the guy that I told you that's my mentor, he comes up the next day. He's like, hey.
You talk about the missed tackles?
Yeah. Like I said, he said, yeah, you had 24, but you would have had 29 if you didn't miss 5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But it made me realize that you can always improve no matter how good you are.
So one thing as a leader that a lesson I teach again and again is you have to build a tent big enough.
Yeah.
Where the people under you.
Yeah.
And I think this is a lesson that I heard I'll give Gary Keller credit.
Yeah.
We're broker agnostic, but I think this is a Gary Keller quote. Mm-hmm. Is you have to build a tent big enough where the people under you can have their success in your tent.
Yeah.
And that's one thing coaches did for us, right?
Yes.
Again, even as an average to below average athlete, I learned so many lessons from sports, the failures and the successes.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your success team now.
Yeah.
So you run an office that has had 300 agents before. What does your success team look like now? So
first of all, Tim, I got into management in 2016. Now mind you, I'm coming off probably the best 4-year stretch of selling real estate than
anybody's ever had. 2013 to 2017, those are the golden years.
I was getting to a point where I'm like, man, okay, I can only do about 8 to 10 million by myself. I said, now I need to start building a team of this. So I remember them reaching out to me and say, hey, we have this opportunity for you. Would you want to, become be a manager? And I turned it down like 3 times. Like, no, I got out of corporate America.
They were trying to recruit you for a while, I remember.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. And I kept turning it down. But the thing that made me want to do it, Tim, is like, you know what? I've been to a lot of the real estate offices, and be honest with you, there was not a lot of people that looked like me that were doing it, And so I said, you know what? God must be telling me this is something that I need to do. So maybe it's not about me making an extra $80,000 a year. Maybe it's about me helping building a legacy, helping other people build legacies. So that's when I decided to take the role as manager, and and because I realized that if I can teach at least one person to do it the right way, then that's my job is done.
I think one of the best things in the world. So I've had a lot of people leave my team over the years, and it's tough. But when you see one person that you've coached or trained really succeed out there in the market, and I mean really succeed.
Yeah, and you got some good ones that left your team that are kicking the rear end right now.
And it feels fantastic. Now, in saying that, you still wish you had their production on the team.
Oh yeah.
But it feels fantastic when you know that there's people out there that their life is better because you were in it.
Yes.
That's a phenomenal feeling. Hi, I'm Tim Soyka. I'm here with Kevin Massey at Go Long Studios, and we're vibing with the Tough Talk Real Estate Podcast. Here we go, Kevin.
Let's get it going today.
By the way, Kevin doesn't let me touch the board. It goes badly for everybody when I do. All right. So the big mistake in real estate we want to talk about today is not understanding that price might be the least important part of a real estate negotiation. Most realtors think that price is everything, and it's not.
I've always heard and been told by, my mentors is you're thinking about price more than they are.
Right.
9 times out of 10.
Right. All right. So think of negotiation like colored poker chips. However, the difference in poker is a blue chip might be worth $500 to you, but worth $10,000 to the other side. So I want you to think as a negotiation of shifting poker chips, and you want to give up the chips that are cheapest to you first, but may offer most value to the buyers or sellers. Let's go.
Oopsie. There we go.
All right, here we go. So to sellers, if you're a buyer and you want to make an offer that's good to them and maybe get a lower price, you could offer a shorter option period. Like, I'm only going to ask for 5 days option period. You can ask for short financing periods, or you can put more money down. Let them know in advance that I'm going to ask for limited repairs. That means a lot to a seller. A seller having to do a lot of little things is troublesome to them. You can ask them to potentially leave furniture and maybe pay a little higher, because moving furniture, that's an inconvenience to the seller.
Absolutely.
But let's say a media room, an operating media room, how much is that worth to the buyer?
The buyer,
Worth a lot, because it's already operating.
Yeah, it's fully functioning,
He can
right?
sit down and watch Full Metal Jacket or Star Wars that night, right? But to the seller, he's got to move the media chairs. You can buy equipment cheap now.
And you don't even know if they're purchasing a home with the media room for the next home.
Right, but the buyer, it's really cool. Who pays for title, commissions, warranties? But I would say the main thing a seller's looking for is a lack of minor requests, a lot of little stuff they have to do. House cleaning, touch-up paint, things like that. However, if the seller's willing to do it and it's pretty easy for them, that could be value to the buyer. Let's go to the buyer. So buyers, low move-in and low hassle cost. If the lawn's mowed, well, that's pretty cheap for you to do it. But if they move in and the house is like perfect, that can mean a lot to them.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say they offer, so for a buyer, they might need closing costs, because cash out of pocket doesn't mean a lot. So you might be able to get a little more sales price if you offer closing costs. For a buyer, a lot of times buyers are cash strapped. So if you'll do little things for them like home warranties, or if you offer to paint the home, a painter, for instance, paint the home, that can mean a lot to the buyer where you get a higher price.
Gutter repairs, simple stuff like that.
One of the best things you can do for a buyer is leave behind appliance warranty, paint colors, paint swatches. That means a lot to a buyer.
Absolutely.
And also, again, who pays for title, commissions, and warranties like that? So those are different things you can use in a transaction that can really benefit you. I'm going to give you one really cool example. You ready?
Yes.
So when I was new in real estate, I was selling a $125,000 house.
Okay.
$125,000.
That long ago, it was probably a big amount.
Yeah. It was forever. All right. But the seller came to me and she said, "Hey, don't bring me any offers less than $125,000."
Okay.
But a buyer brought me an offer, and he was in another country. I think Kabul, something like that. I can't remember where it was. But he brought me an offer, and it was $110,000.
Okay.
And she didn't like the offer. She goes, I want $125,000. But he said you could live in the home for free for a year.
That's, yeah. How much did he just say over there? Over 15,000?
Right,
Probably.
Absolutely. So remember, price can be the least important part of a negotiation. So join us on the Tough Talk this week. We have some great guests coming up. And of course, remember, Go Long Studios.
Looking forward to it.
You know that there's people out there that their life is better because you were in it.
Yes.
That's a phenomenal feeling.
Yes.
So,
right.
And you've had that more than just about anybody I know.
Man,
isn't that a blessing?
It's a blessing, Tim. I mean, it's, I've taken a lot away from me per se to invest in others, but the feeling that I get from it when I see young agents come, I remember this one agent I had. I don't want to call her name, but her dad used to work for me as a framer when I was at Perry Homes. And I remember when she was in high school, she would come to my office and we would hire her to kind of do our, paperwork, to file away the plans and different things. And so, I remember watching this girl go all through high school, and then she went off to college. And so at this time I had left Perry Homes, but I was talking to her dad all the time. So it made me feel good that she decided to go get her real estate license. And the first person her dad told her to call was, well, you need to call Markeith.
That's a good feeling.
A good feeling is like, man, that first of all, I left an impression on someone who worked for me that believed that he's going to put his daughter in my care, And so she ended up signing with us, and she used to be a school teacher. She was a school teacher for like 2 or 3 years, and she wanted to, so she had the summer off. She got her license. She said, look, I'm just going to start doing it over the summer. And so she came in, and she ended up closing like 5 or 6 million in volume her first year,
Wow. Her first year.
First year. She was amazing, man. I mean, it's because she had that work ethic. She was a school. You realize that most successful, if you look,
school teachers make it in real estate because they're very service-based.
They're service-based. Nurses, flight attendants, because they're all service-based. And so, but it made me feel good to see her grow from, I'm just going to try for a summer to where now she's doing amazing.
So, again, the theme of this is translating sports success, but I will say translating any success and failure, any success or failure, and using that and realizing it can be a superpower. Now, before we really talk about the state of the market, I want to talk. So, one superpower you have, and I assume you got this from your grandmother, is you're one of the best cooks I know.
Yeah,
Is that something you've used to build your real estate business? The fact that you can cook. I know you use it to team build.
Yeah.
But tell us about how you've used your ability to make blackened catfish.
Oh yeah.
A superpower.
Yeah.
For you.
Well, the thing about it is, this is how I learned how to cook. So my grandmother, I think I was 6th, 7th grade maybe, and my grandmother got real sick, and where she had like a stroke or something, where and so, now this is back in the late 80s where, you don't have home health and all that stuff.
Right. You were the home health.
I was the home health. So basically the doctors were like, well, hey, someone needs to sit with her for the next 3 or 4 weeks where she can't be by herself. And so, now every summer I was raised by my mom's grandmother, and then when the summertime I would come to my dad's grandmother's house to stay with. And so what I did was I told my aunt and uncles who they all were working. So I said, look, I'll stay with her, now mind you, I'm 12 years old at the time,
Wow.
I said, I'll stay with her. And then, when you guys get off work, and then I'll go and do kid stuff,
Right.
And so for like 3 weeks, every morning I would get up and she would show me how to cook breakfast. She would show me how to cook grits and eggs and pancakes and all those things. And then she would show me how to cook the red beans and rice and the gumbo and the jambalaya and all those things. And so that's where I really learned how to cook, because, taking care of her.
And you do use that in real estate. Like we did a fundraiser, and thank you so much for that. We did a fundraiser for one of my team members a few weeks ago. And you cooked, I cooked. I mean, I think it's just such a wonderful gift.
It is.
To be able to network with. So
it is.
I guess use your superpower. If you can cook, invite people over. Yeah. Cook for them. If you know a lot about sports, invite people over for a football game. Use your superpowers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So how do you see? So we talked about the golden age of real estate. So in wine, you have the great years. Like in real estate, there was nothing easier than 2013 to 2020.
No.
It was so easy.
It was.
But now it's a tough time. I'm so happy we're getting to go through this tough time.
Yeah.
Because there's always an agent having their best year. But tell me about what the market looks. What's the state of the market to you right now?
So right now, Tim, and I wasn't at Keller Williams at the time. I knew you, but I didn't know you. I mean, I remember. I think I saw one of your listings a long time ago. But back when I remember when the whole COVID thing started, I was managing at another place, and I remember we had a national meeting. And they were like, "Hey, you're gonna have to lay this person off. We're gonna have to get thin. We're gonna have to get because we're not gonna be able to practice real estate. We're not gonna be able to, and so everyone was planning for the COVID to be just crap, but when they lowered the interest rates to 2.5%, and then it real estate only shrunk for like a month. I mean, remember, and then it just started churning. And so, and I say all that to say is that we're probably never going to have a better 3-year stretch in real estate than we just came out of, where, and it was good for us because, you sold a lot of real estate, but it wasn't healthy for the overall.
Because anybody could sell a house.
And so
everybody is getting into real estate and doing posts like, I sold my listing in 3 days. And I want to go, really? Who didn't?
Exactly.
Every listing sold it.
Right. And so what happened is when the market is like it was then, more people get in it. More of the part-timers, more of the people who, my cousin, he works for, Honda, but then he sells houses too, And the public don't know that.
And they only suck 1 or 2 transactions a year away from the professionals.
Yes.
But it hurts.
It hurts. Yeah.
In those years where everybody's getting into business and they're listing with their brother-in-law who's never sold a house, that's the listing I didn't get.
Exactly.
Those hurt.
Yeah. Someone who's gonna sustain the markets, who's gonna go out and market it, who's gonna, do all the things that it takes to be. You're running a true business. You're not just doing it just to get, commissions. Then we're not going to talk commissions on here because, But so traditionally, when the market is high, the agent count is high, and then when the market gets corrected, so now you're going from a market of just fog and mirrors, breeding bodies, doing transactions to now
you actually got to know what you're doing.
You got to know what you're doing. You got to know how to price a home. You got to know how to market it. You got to know how to return phone calls.
I love tough markets.
I love it.
It sucks so much non-talented people out of the market.
Yes.
So it's a real benefit.
Yeah.
And we thrive. Like the best part is when the market starts rebounding and all the, let's call them non-professionals aren't in it.
Yeah.
That's the best time when it rebounds before they come in.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
And I think, for a long time, we've always been looked at the industry of, well, you can do this part-time. Because that's what, if you go anywhere else, and look, I love Champion School of Real Estate, and I think they're amazing. But all the times, that's what you can come get your real estate license in 3 weeks.
Right.
And you can be selling houses in 4 weeks, Right. And there's no knock on them because
that's the law.
They're
following the law.
They're following the law.
It's so easy to get in this
It's so easy to get into this business. And so then when you get people who don't really respect it, they just think, first of all, they get in and they think that they can just roll it out there and people, now I got my license, all my friends are going to call me. No, they're not.
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to go do lead generation. You're going to have to market yourself. You're going to have to find what you're good at. In my case, it was social media. I started having football parties. I realized that, hey, man, LSU.
Making a little gumbo, maybe?
Yeah, making gumbo. And back then in 2011, LSU was pretty good. They were playing for the national title against Alabama. So I remember when
they had the hat.
Yeah, they had the hat. And then, Saban was doing his thing at Alabama. So I remember they had the game of the century in 2011 where LSU was number 1, Bama was number 2, or vice versa. I can't remember. And so it was the big thing, man. And so I remember, and I had started having these football parties that, I would just pick a little sports bar like Champs or somewhere centrally located in like the Galleria, because I was working in the River Oaks area at the time. And it started off with maybe 10 people coming, and I would just send it out on Facebook as an event. And man, next thing you know is it was 30 people, and then it was 40 people, and then it was 50 people, And then by the time they got to the Alabama game, it was my friend who played for the Giants at the time. He said, hey, man, look, I got the membership at the Foundation Room. Let's just throw a party there. Wow. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can get that many people to go to the Foundation. He's like, no, just put it out there and see what happens. And, make this event, put it out there.
How many people did you get?
We got 360-something people that showed up for this event, And now, mind you, they were getting in free, but we told them to donate $10 at the door just for a fundraiser or whatever. And so, and then after that, Tim, my business just took off.
Yeah. So you embrace, one thing I talk about a lot is an agent, you have to embrace your superpower. Yeah. You're a networker. You use your sports network. Yeah. You're a networker.
Yeah.
Your love of food, everything, the network. Yeah. So, all right. So we're about to go to one of the toughest segments. We're not to the tough talk yet.
Yeah, yeah.
But I want to talk about the biggest mistakes, and when you call them out, I want you to look right in the camera.
Yeah.
What are the biggest mistakes you've seen agents make?
The biggest mistakes that I see agents making, Tim, is that they don't take success serious enough. Anything that you have success in, sometimes just because you are good at it right off the way, that doesn't mean that you're successful. Sometimes, a blind squirrel can find a nut in a field if it's full of them, but that doesn't make him a skilled hunter or a skilled harvester if it's there. So it's like a lot of the agents, the biggest mistake is that they don't invest in themselves. And when they hear invest in themselves, they think it's money. Well, it's not always about money, because I didn't have any money when I started, but I had time. I had time to learn my craft, to learn contracts, to set up my systems, to do all those things. I did open houses every weekend for probably 8 months.
So, all right, so we're going to go back and forth here. So let's talk. I'm going to follow up on your open houses. Yeah. When I had 5 buyers in my car, a reward that I gave myself, because when I was new, you mostly have buyers. If I had 5 buyers, I did not have to work an open house that weekend, Mark.
Yeah.
But if I had 4 buyers, I had to work an open house. If I had 3 buyers, I had to work 2 open houses.
Yeah.
If I had only 2 buyers in my car, I had to work 3 open houses a weekend. If I only had 1 buyer, I had to work 4 open houses. And if I had no buyers in my car, I had to work 5 open houses in a weekend. And you're saying to yourself, you can't do that. I know for a fact you can.
Yes, you can.
If you don't have buyers in your car, you need to be out networking.
Yes.
All right. So you're up next. What do you got?
And so, and my biggest thing too, Tim, is first of all, investing doesn't always mean money.
It doesn't.
Go learn, go to every training that you can get.
Yep.
Learn how to, basically write the contract. I tell everybody the way I look at it is, and that's the reason why I'm thankful for Keller Williams, because they have a great training program. And my philosophy is that if I don't feel comfortable writing contracts and knowing what I'm doing, then I'm probably not going to feel comfortable going out and marketing myself.
Okay.
I'm kind of cocky in the way that if I know something, I know it. And so I didn't mind going out and selling myself to people.
All right. Here's a tough tip. Ready? Before you contact a listing agent, before you wake them up Sunday morning or Friday night and interrupt their time with their family, go online and see if all the documents are posted.
Yes.
There's probably a seller's disclosure. There might be information about the house where you don't have to call them.
Yeah.
And when you submit the offer and already have those documents and didn't bother the listing agent and pull them away from their family, they're going to appreciate that.
Yes.
Do your homework before you call the listing agent. If it's a commercial one, get on CoStar and LoopNet. If it's residential, get on HAR or whatever site you have.
Yeah.
But do your research before you call the listing agent. Don't call and ask questions that you can find the answer of yourself.
Exactly.
If you want to look like a professional, be a professional.
Yes.
What do you got next?
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, I learned that I respect every agent, so I always try to say, well, I'm not going to call an agent after 5 o'clock unless I really, really have to.
Thank God. Yes.
Let's just, or I'll email you and say, hey, or if it's something that we're negotiating, hey, is it okay to call you? But learn how to be, I'm not a confrontational person, and I've never really had to be confrontational with other agents. So because as big as Houston is, it's small when it comes to real estate, because we all know, we all can probably name 4 or 5 agents. You like, I don't want to do no deals with this person.
I can name more 4 or 5. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, because of the,
right. And a lot of them are agents that I helped out when they needed me, and when I called for an inch of help, I didn't get it. So
yeah. So learn to be cordial. Learn to be respect
nice.
The industry. Be honest and be nice. Right. Because at the end of the day, they want to sell the house. Your buyer needs a house, so you don't have to be tough. You don't have, and just simple things like, I'm not going to send you the home inspection report if you don't ask me to, right. Because now if I do that, they have to disclose it. So it's like, and we all realize
play nice.
You give them a courtesy, even if you don't like that person. Just get, hey man, look, do you want this inspection? No, I don't want it. Send me the experts of what you. Right.
All right, here's one I've got. You ready?
Yeah.
Don't pick every battle in a real estate contract. If you're going to beat someone up on price, that's fine. Then don't ask them for the survey and ask them to change paint colors and ask for a home warranty.
Yeah.
Either give them a good offer or pick other battles, but don't pick every battle. Real estate agents, don't let your client pick every battle.
Yes.
Find out what's most important for them and go hard after that battle.
Yes.
If a home's wired electrically bad, go pick that battle.
Yes.
But then don't go pick a minor issue in the garden.
Yes.
So pick a battle or two, but don't pick every battle.
Yes. And I would say too, Tim, sit down and you lay out. I learned this in playing sports. I remember the guy I played for in college. He would always tell us, if we play in Florida or Auburn or something, he would say, hey, look, this is the question they're probably going to ask you. If they ask you these questions, this is how I want you to answer it, because we want to be on the same page. We want to, so he would tell us, okay, this is how, as a team, we're going to answer this question. That way we don't go out and say something that's going to, so sit down with your buyers and say, hey, look, this is what this process looked like. Now, and this is what I used to do, Tim. I say, look, now we're getting into this boat. You're getting in the boat, I'm getting in the boat, and we're about to push off and sail to finding you a home. Now the waters may get rough, it may get smooth, it may get, but we're not getting out of this boat until we get to the house that you want. We're going to get out of this boat together. So sit down and have that conversation with the buyer and say, this is what's going to happen. You're going to do an inspection. Some inspector going to come in and say that this is not, this is that. We're not going to worry about that because that's not something that we're going to hang our head on.
Don't pick every battle.
We're not going to pick every battle. But if it's something that electrical or, I always try to tell people the preach, we're going to plumbing. We're going to worry about the HVAC, we're going to worry about the electrical, and as long as it's not those things, then we're going to keep moving on.
All right. So we talked about mistakes you've seen other agents make. What are some of the biggest mistakes you make or have made?
I think that one of the biggest mistakes that I've made, Tim, is not believing in myself early on, because sometimes
This isn't a hubris game, but it is a confidence game.
It is a confidence game, and I've learned this in all of my years and being in these rooms with these big people and these big individuals and these people that everyone have all the respect for. And then you realize what? Just because they're in here, that doesn't mean that they're smarter than you.
They have doubts too.
They have doubts too. And, now they've gotten breaks along the ways here and there, and I'll tell myself, it only takes you one good year to have the best year of your life to build on it, and so I think, and coming from where I came from, I had to learn to be that confident. I had to learn to realize that, hey, man, I know what I'm doing,
So my piece of advice here is in the last podcast I talked about keep your ego in check.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
It is.
However, when I'm not taking time for myself and when I'm answering calls, I'll be on a paddleboard and people will be blowing up my phone, or I'm out on an early morning run. I had some guy who wanted to get into real estate decide to call me 3 times at 7 a.m. on a Friday morning when I'm a mile and a half into my run. Call once and leave a message. But when I answer that phone, my ego can get away with me. So I would say, last segment I said, hey, don't let your ego get away from you. I've been guilty of that. I've let my ego get away from me. And it's usually when I'm tired, when you call me at 7 o'clock at night and you shouldn't, when you call me on Father's Day or Super Bowl Sunday or the 7th game of the World Series when the Astros are playing, right? You are probably going to get egocentric Tim on the phone.
Yeah.
And the biggest mistakes when that person comes out, I find I'm apologizing for that for weeks. But I do have the grace to apologize and call people and go, man,
you called me at a bad time.
I messed that up. So I would say letting my ego get in the way.
Yeah.
But that comes from not giving, you talked about getting time for yourself. If you don't get that time for yourself, you're going to let the ego go away.
Well, and that's another thing too, Tim, is that, we've talked about this before off the air, but about a year ago, man, I made a assertive effort to really get my health, back in order. Because, man,
Don't you feel so much?
I feel so much better, man. I mean, I lost 90 plus pounds, in a year, and
you said you're 20 pounds away from your playing weight in college.
Yeah, and so, but I feel so much better. And then, I was getting tired, and blood pressure was high. So, and in this business, this stress is pretty high.
And there's always bad food around to eat.
It's always bad food. It's always
somebody just brought pizza or chocolate or cookies.
Or donuts or cookies. So I went about 6, 7, 8 months without eating sugar at all. Just cut cold turkey,
Awesome.
And so, but now that I've done that, I've learned to control, my eating habits, and it makes me feel better. And then it gives you more confidence. Now I don't feel bad about walking into a room because, we look good in suits, and so, but I think just, in this industry, you gotta always keep your health in check.
I haven't told this story before. I don't think I want to share it with you. And Pablo, I don't think I've shared this before. Producer Pablo, if I have, stop me, but I don't think I have. So this is one of the most important things I can tell you about real estate, and this is my tough talk. So warning, we're going to the tough talk segment. So we're about to open it up. So we're about to be tough on agents.
Yeah.
So warning, tough talk coming. This is the kind of thing you're not going to get from somewhere else. This is an agent being really honest with you about when he saw somebody really mess something up.
Yeah.
So I'm in a real estate transaction, and after my first year in real estate, and this is going to sound cocky, but everybody kind of knew who I was.
Yeah.
Like I was a rookie of the year. I won a lot of awards.
I mean, you closed 75 houses in your first year.
72.
Yeah.
But I sold a lot. So my first year, I sold a lot of houses. So a lot of agents wanted to prove they were better than me, which is great. But we were in a down market. Like nothing was selling. Like the standard home was on the market 120 days.
Yeah.
Buyers had all the power. I mean, all the power. And my tough talk is be nice.
Yes.
Remember, always be nice. Again, I'm not always, but in a real estate negotiation, it's best to always be nice. And again, I'm telling you, sometimes I don't listen to my advice, but I'm going to give you this example.
Yeah.
So in this transaction, this agent had to prove she was better than me. She beat me up on every point.
Yeah.
Like it was a buyer's market. She beat us down on price. Then she sent us an inspection report, the whole inspection report. And you know what she said? Fix it.
Yeah, I want everything.
Everything. I want everything fixed.
What's
She beat us up on survey. She beat us up every step of the way. She beat us up. She had to prove she can beat me every step of the way. And Markeith, she did.
Yeah.
She made me look like a fool. There was nothing I could do.
Yeah.
My home had been on the market 120 days. I had to bend over backwards for her. But in every real estate negotiation, people, in every one, there's a point where the other side will have the advantage.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that. 2 weeks before close, she called me and she goes, Tim, I have some great news. And I said, really? Tell me about it. She goes, I noticed your clients have moved out of the house, which they did. She goes, we can close 2 weeks early and my clients can get out of housing and it'll save my clients $2,000. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
And I said, boy, that is great to know. So I called my client. I said, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Yeah.
And they go, what? I go, she goes, screw them.
Yeah.
I go, absolutely, screw them.
That's what they just did to you?
Right. We can't close early.
Yeah.
So I called the agent back and I said, hey, we're not going to close early. And she goes, but you can. I said, oh, absolutely, we can, but we're not going to.
Yeah.
Why? And I just sat there and let her figure it out for herself.
Yeah.
And she went, oh. If she had been at all respectful,
Exactly.
nice one time, she could have saved her client $2,000 or $3,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
But she didn't have the leverage, and we used it. So again, be nice, be nice, be nice, be nice.
Yeah.
So what's your tough talk advice for us today?
So, Tim, I'm the kind of guy, and my kids can tell you, I don't get upset, and then when they, my kids, my son is 18, my daughter's 15. I don't ever remember ever giving them a spanking. I mean, it just knocks on my day, So I'm a really, really nice guy when it comes to, but when I get angry, you know it. I mean, it's kind of like you, but my tough talk is, just know what you're doing. Understand that.
Go get trained.
Yeah, get trained. There are 5,000 brokers out here, and I'm not going to say one is better than the other. I mean, we work for a pretty doggone good one, but go and learn your craft. I mean, it's no different than just like when I made the transition from being the crappy football player to being a great football player. It wasn't because, all of a sudden I ran faster or did, it was because I studied. I would watch film. I would learn, I would watch film so much to where if a running back was looking to the right before he snapped the ball then I know I'm like, oh, wait,
I'm going to meet him there.
I'm going to meet him there. 'Cause, I look for those tendencies. So everything in life has tendencies, so learn your craft, and I think that's the toughest talk for people is that, and they think that it's all, they see us, Tim, and, you have the nice car, the nice house, but you don't know what it took for us to get there. It takes a lot of time and effort.
And they say things like, I just got to close 2 transactions a month. But where's that transaction got to come from?
Yeah.
Learn your craft. By the way, like Markeith said, if you become an expert in this field, you don't look for business.
No, it looks for you.
It comes running at you.
Yeah.
Running at you. Like, people just want me involved in deals.
Yeah.
And that's because I took the time to get trained to learn my craft.
Exactly.
And learning what I'm good at in it and what I'm not good at. There's some things I'm not good at, but you can hire for that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I had to learn what I'm good at.
Yes, and and know you're good at it and be okay with it.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing too is that I'm not someone, I don't brag, I don't do those things. I because I know that as quickly as it takes me to get there, if I don't stay humble and work hard and keep hustling, it can all go away.
They can all go away really fast.
Real quick. So, but just learn your craft. This is, it's amazing how we just went through this whole, composition, cooperative composition stuff. And, and it's amazing how industries who are charging 10, 12 times the amount that we charge to sell homes are the ones that are trying to cut our way of living. I mean, you can't go and negotiate with an attorney.
Right.
He charged 35%, then guess what? You're going to pay him 35%.
Yeah.
And so
a tough talk I want to offer too is we are going through a tough time in real estate.
Yeah.
We're always going through a tough time. If you're committed to real estate, if you love real estate, and I mean love it. Like, I love investing in real estate. I love that I can touch it. I love I can taste it. If I can walk right up to a building and just put my hand out, and I love that about real estate.
Yeah.
If you love real estate, not just selling it, stick with it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you, like, the people who really love it, stay in it. But if you don't love it, get out.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah.
If you don't like this job, get out.
Yeah.
It shows. Just get out. All right. So now's the time for the guest shout out. So you're going to look right in the camera and you're going to give a shout out why people should call you. How, for you, it's you're going to have them potentially come to your office and build a business.
Yeah.
But guest shout out your phone number. How can people reach you? How can they reach out to you? What can you offer our guests today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Tim, thank you for this opportunity to come on your amazing your podcast here. And the thing that I think that I offer, or we offer as a brokerage, is that first of all, we have a state of the art building that, you know, when our agents come through the door, we have conference rooms. We have, you know, several conference rooms where you can come in and bring your clients 24 hours a day. On the weekends, you have electronic access to get in and out of the buildings. I have 12 amazing people on my staff that can help us with contracts, with contract questions, with marketing, with, you know, getting paid and all those things. You know, and the thing that because I still recruit a lot of top agents, is that I sell to them that we are going to give you the recipe for success, you know, and that is, you know, showing up every day and, you know, marketing your business and showing up, you know, to really, really be around other people that are successful. I mean, we're blessed to have the Tim Sorkas, C. Tim Sell, the Chris Hiller teams, you know, the Brandon Scotts, and I've just brought over Mary Watts from EXP. She does, you know, about $20 million a year, you know, because iron sharpens iron. And if you want to be around people that are going to, you know, push you and encourage you, because I tell everybody, in our office, it's not a competition, it's a collaboration. You know, you've offered to me hundreds of times that, hey, if I ever do anything for you, let me know, you know, and he don't have to do that. I mean, he's a multimillionaire selling real estate agent and with running a great team. He can be like, you know what, I don't care about these people. I give him my check and I don't have to do anything. But it pours back into the office. He teaches classes. He teaches his commercial classes. He teaches any part of real estate that you want to learn. We have an avenue for you to be able to get that.
And how do people get in touch with you or the office?
So if you want to get in touch with me, our phone number is 281-220-2100, 281-220-2100. And my email is Markeith, Markeith at kw.com, Markeith at kw.com. You call us, send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to set up a coffee or lunch with you or office visit and go over everything with you. We're located in Katy, in Cinco Ranch, just off of Westheimer Parkway. So give us a call.
All right, so a shout out to Pablo and Kevin Massey here at Go Long Studios.
Great studio, man.
Yeah, find them. Great studio, isn't it? Great setup.
Amazing, man. Yeah.
And upcoming episodes, again, we have mega agents, we have developers, we have incredible things. If you like today's episode, you can follow us on our socials. You can subscribe.
Yeah.
If you want to buy or sell real estate in Houston, just so happens, you can call me at 877-313-SELL, 877-313-SELL, or find me at ctimsell.com. I can show up and train if you need me to as well. We can talk about it.
Yes.
Thanks so much. Have a super day, and we hope to see you on the next Tough Talk.
Thank you, Tim.
Perfect.